That's all good, man. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, man, it's a pleasure to be here. How are you guys doing?
Good, dude. How's you're in Chicago, right?
I actually am now about 3 hours south of Nashville, right
Oh, okay.
across the Alabama border, and about an hour and a half from Atlanta. So we've been down here for about 3 years now. So
Oh, that's awesome, man.
yeah, man.
I years ago when I first shot you an email, I was like, "Oh, dude, Cody's in Chicago."
Yeah.
And then when we were planning this, I was like, maybe after the interview, Zach and I can drive over to Chicago and get a drink with you or something. Because
That's funny.
we're in Fort Wayne, Indiana, so
Oh, okay.
probably
Yeah.
like a
Well, that's not
3 hour
too
drive.
far.
Yeah.
That's not too far from Chicago area. So I mean, we were up that we lived up there. I mean, I lived up there for probably 8 plus years, probably even more than that. My wife was, I mean, lived there all her life, so we're still up there pretty often.
Yeah, I got
So
family and stuff still up
yeah,
there. Yeah.
yeah. Well, my wife does anyway. So we still got a lot of friends and extended family and stuff up that way. So we're there at least once a year, if not twice. So
Nice. My wife and I are trying to plan a trip out there because she's a huge Harry Potter fan and they have the Harry
oh,
Potter store
nice.
there.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
So
that's awesome.
What you guys think of the new trailer of the new Harry Potter? They're gonna ruin it, right? Another thing is gonna get.
dude, honestly, I haven't even seen it. I'm
Don't. If you want my advice, don't. Like you didn't miss anything. It looks. I mean, I don't know why they have to steal the magic of everything we have. Like me personally, growing up, they're stealing everything. Like Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, they're remaking all of them.
hmm
Such
It's all
bad
about the
versions.
money, man.
Yeah, it is. Unfortunately.
Yep. All right. And hey, it looks like we got a pretty decent sized guest pool. Uh, Thank you for joining us, Sonia and Melvin and Steve. And I think I said hi to everybody that's joined so far.
Hey,
But
I'm gonna
yeah,
go ahead and mute everybody until the end of the call. So just a reminder to everybody, the chat is open here. So if you have questions or comments or whatever, just feel free to drop them in there. And um, yeah, we'll let Steve and Cody take over. Or sorry, Skylar and Cody.
the hell, man.
All right, Steve, are you ready?
We've only been friends for 20 years. All right. Yeah. Cody, you ready to get started here?
Yes, sir. I'm all locked and
Cool.
loaded. So
Perfect. We are just full disclosure. We are recording this call for the group for the people who can't be here. A lot of people are still at work, and some people are still in school. So
it's
uh, we're
all
just
good, brother.
gonna we're just gonna kind of go, man.
Yeah. If I was sensitive about recording, I'm in the wrong line of business. So.
That is very true. um, but yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you guys all for joining us here. Cody is our first guest speaker here at the Free Producer. And I'm personally really excited to talk to Cody. Think about 6 years ago, 7 years ago, I was running a D&D campaign with Zach, and we were using a lot of sync music from Soundstripe to um, kind of give our games that extra oomph. And at one point I noticed, like, man, I'm using a lot of music from this guy Cody. And I was just kind of listening to it while I was working and was like, man, this is really cool. I'd love to do something like this. So I hit Cody up and was just like, hey man, you inspired me to kind of get started in um, making cinematic slash orchestral music. And he was very, very friendly with my reaching out to him completely unprompted. So this for me has been really exciting. Um, but at this point, I think Cody has a lot of insight that he can give the members of the group and those of you who are here right now. So why don't we just go ahead and get started with Cody? Why don't you give us like a quick, like 5-10 minute overview of who you are, what you do in the music business, and a little bit of how you got there. We'll dig
Sure.
deeper into that as the call goes on. But yeah, just a quick introduction if you don't mind.
Yeah, well, for those of you that are just hopping on, my name is Cody Martin. I compose music for a wide range of entertainment, I guess, platforms. I work a lot in film, a little bit in television, primarily in music licensing for the most part, or at least that's where the majority of my time gets put, if that makes any sense. So. I mean, I've been doing this for about, professionally about 10, 11 years, something like that at this point. And obviously, way before that, I was just always hooked at recording stuff. And I got very much into soundtracks and really got hooked on those. And before I even knew what the heck I was doing, I just thought to myself, oh, wouldn't it be great if I could just program a whole orchestra into a keyboard? And then about 5 years later, I was like, oh, people actually do that. All right, great. So, so I worked full time for a long time, a 9 to 5, and saved up a ton of money just to invest into the gear that I wanted to buy. I was really meticulous in terms of what was going to be the best thing for what I was doing, whether or not I wanted to build a hybrid studio, or if I wanted to, go more the analog route, or if I, wanted to go all digital. And um, so I ended up going digital at first because at that time, sample libraries were actually starting to get really good. I mean, 10 years ago, I mean, there were 10 years ago or before that, there were not near as many that were known to be as high quality as they are today. And so it was just kind of one of those moments where I realized, I was like, wow, I see a lot of potential in this. I'm going to invest into this instead of buying a bunch of gear and trying to get everything figured out. And so that's what I did. I invested a lot into just, getting a computer and software and some speakers, just, the general basics, just to program everything into a MIDI keyboard and compose that way. And that's what I did. And I probably did that for about, I would say 3 or 4 years, just honing in my skills. And then I started applying once I kind of felt like I was moderately ready to start taking on work and working for other individuals and that sort of thing. And that's when I started working in licensing, because there were so many websites that were providing a service for people to take music and use them for YouTube videos or podcasts or, projects, wedding videos. I mean, it was all over the place. And so I really poured a lot of time and energy into that, and I still continue to do that. I mean, overall, that's, kind of what I do, and the sort of stuff that I work on, and I love it. I've been doing it full time. I mean, like I said, for a good uh, full like, let me put it this way: it's been about 8 years since I've been able to pay all my bills with just working in the music industry. So, um, and there was a few years before that even where it was just kind of gradual, and we just kind of build up to it. But yeah, overall, that's what I do.
That's awesome, man. You mentioned something that I've been, I kind of had the same sort of, I wouldn't say it's struggle, but like, when I'm building my studio or my office, should I go towards the more like digital, all in the box sort of thing, or should I really kind of find the analog gear that I really want?
Yeah.
And I kind of landed on the former, where it's like, it's software nowadays is so good that you can do a lot just in the box. So,
Oh my goodness, yeah.
and one thing I appreciated about your music in particular when I first came across it, and this was even 5, 6 years ago, is the quality of your sound. So
Thanks, man.
yeah, no problem, dude. So I guess kind of branching off of that, just out of my own curiosity, what are some of the, I guess, one, what DAW do you use? And two, what are some of your favorite, like, sample libraries or plugins or something like that, just as kind of like a baseline question?
Yeah. Great question. So it's funny, like, I mean, just about all my stuff on Soundstripe is almost entirely digitally emulated. So it's very rare where I hire a live musician on for a session and have them record something authentic, because with VSTs, or software instruments, you have in a lot of ways a lot of wiggle room. You can really manipulate sound very easily and get it to sound the way that you want it. And so, um, and even today, like I mean, my digital emulation versus analog is like 95% digital and maybe 5% analog. So it's very, I mean, it's still almost all completely digital. And so there's a lot there, and a lot of it just has to do with the tools that you're using within whatever DAW that you're using. I personally use Logic. I love Logic.
Mhm.
Probably just because when I had no idea what I was doing, I was using GarageBand. But it's,
Yeah.
it's it's amazing because it's such a good, like, GarageBand is such a great entry point just to learn how to use the basic stuff. And then when you get Logic, the format and overall the overall appearance of Logic is very, very similar to the structure of GarageBand. So it's very easy for me to just know kind of where to look for things and figure stuff out. And so it was a really good, kind of segue into using a more professional DAW. Um, I've used Pro Tools a little bit and a little bit of Ableton as well, but I'm still stuck on Logic, and it's just one of those things that I, really like. And I'm sorry, Skylar, what was the second question leading up to that? Just the gear or the software that I enjoy using?
Yeah, yeah, just your favorite
Sure.
VSTs, sample libraries,
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah.
that.
So I it all depends on what I'm creating. So for me, like, I enjoy creating like orchestral and cinematic stuff the most, for sure. And so when it comes to the cinematic stuff, I like to go for a lot of like the older VST libraries from like Spitfire Audio. So they have like an Albion Legacy string library that's amazing. And I actually bought it before they called it Legacy. It was just Albion, and then they had Albion Liguria, and then Albion Iceni, and and those were the three that they had. They had one that was just, I mean, mainstream string patches. Liguria was more kind of fluttery and elegant and more for romantic sort of stuff. And then Iceni was like the really big, deep, dirty cello, that sort of stuff. And all three of those I still use all the time because they're so good. But at this point, I'm really getting more used to creating multis, or taking multiple different patches and combining them in terms of just changing the tone and the quality, and it adds a lot more to the life. It makes it more lifelike, and for lack of a better word. So I use there's another company that I really, really love that's called Performance Samples, and
Yeah.
I combine their Pacific Strings library with my Albion libraries quite a bit, and it creates a lot more, especially for legatos. It's very, very authentic for creating legato lines. When it comes to staccatos, or really sharp, short, sort of articulations that typically you're going to use for more energetic, or action packed sort of stuff. I really like, like I said, I love Spitfire Iceni. I really like Hans Zimmer strings. Spitfire Audio also captured all of those, and marketed that. Um, and Yeah, overall, like, I mean, their quality compared to a lot of the other companies that I've gotten material from, I still think are, one of the best. But I still have a lot of other libraries from like 8DO, um, and from like East West and that sort of thing. But I naturally kind of gravitate more towards Spitfire stuff if I can help it, just because I'm familiar with their layout way more than all the rest. And for the most part, the majority of their libraries, you're still getting pretty good bang for your buck in terms of quality. And when you're doing digital emulation and you're composing, and that's another thing that I should probably bring up as well. Like, if you're a singer-songwriter and you're recording a lot of things, live, then at that point, then the gear that you have really matters, because whatever you're
Sure.
printing onto your session, like, you want it to sound as good as humanly possible before you even do any mixing, and before you do any other processing. And um and so with digital emulation, it's the exact same thing. It's basically the exact same thing. You have to make sure that the sounds that you're using are decent sounds. They're decent quality. They're going to do what, I mean, even from a sonic standpoint, like you're going to want to make sure that they're doing what you need them to do, and pick the libraries that are going to just make your workflow a lot less tedious. And like, you want to save time, you want to save as much time as you possibly can and just get everything to sound as good as you can get it just by hitting record and not even adding compression or EQ or anything else to it. So
Yeah, no, you brought up quite a few really good things in there. One, I've had my eye on Pacific Strings from Performance Samples for a long time, so it's cool
mhm.
that to hear that you've used it, you like it.
Oh yeah.
I mainly use VSL libraries,
Oh, okay.
but they're also just so expensive that then I see performance samples and I'm like, oh, I would like to
Yeah.
have and play with that. But I think one thing that you brought up that is really good is just the ability to layer different libraries on top of each other to get different
Hmm.
colors, different sounds,
Yeah.
and a, I think a lot of people feel like they need to. Well, I have this one specific string library. These are my strings. I can't layer anything on top of it, which, in my opinion, that can be further from the truth because it just
Hmm.
opens up so many other doors for you.
Right.
Um, there was one thing that you said too about. Um, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Michelle did give us a question in the chat though.
Oh, okay.
How do you recognize good quality when it comes to your sample libraries? Like, what is it?
Yeah,
Mostly personal preference, or
sure. Yeah. Well, the way that I gauge whether or not something is good quality or not is kind of a factor of two things. Number one, does the instrument itself that I'm playing on my keyboard or that I'm listening to, because I mean, obviously, like before I buy anything, I'm going to go through walkthroughs and tutorials and just figure out how things sound naturally as they're getting played. And the first thing that comes into my mind is like, all right, does this sound actually sound authentic, and does it or does it sound fake? Like, am I going to be able to play this and think to myself, oh, yeah, that's a VST. Like I want someone to be able to listen to this and think that, this is the real deal. And so most of the time I look for just, the overall, like, the sound of the instrument that's getting played and whether or not it sounds fake. If it sounds fake, then then I'm going to probably fast forward a few minutes just to see what else is actually in the library. Because again, there might be a lot of libraries that are really, really solid, but not every patch or every single articulation or type of instrument is always going to sound top notch. So you need to just figure out what you're looking for. And if it's worth spending the money on to, for one articulation of when you have, 15 others, you just have to kind of, I mean, use your better judgment in that regard and, figure that out. But then the other factor, I think, apart from just the quality of the sound, is how how does it work together in terms of if I'm playing, a melody. Like, so for instance, like if I'm playing one note or just a long note or legato note, um, do I feel like when I'm transitioning from one note to another, like, does it sound seamless and natural, or does it still have kind of a jolty, just immediate transition from ones to another? And I will say this about Spitfire is that it's been more difficult to find libraries that, especially for legato strings and Spitfire, like anything from like the last 2 years, I would say, like they they don't put as much time into blending the notes together for legato strings as well as they used to, because before you could play a legato patch and it would sound exactly like what you would think it would sound. Very, very high quality. Like transitions from one notes to another would be, really seamless, and it wouldn't feel, digital or, choppy or whatever you want to call it. And so I look a lot for that. And it's funny because, I mean, the last couple of years for me, at least, I haven't really invested near as much into VSTs as I normally would have, because at this point I think I have enough to where, I don't need to keep on buying a bunch of string libraries.
right?
But I would say, in terms of defining good quality, I would say those two factors would probably be the most important, because you can very easily weed out the good libraries versus the bad ones just by listening to, I mean, those elements of whatever's getting played during tutorials or walkthroughs or anything like that. So
For sure. And actually, you did with that answer. You kind of jogged my memory about the last question I was going to ask. So the Free Producers started as a we started the group as something called the Artifacts Free Plugin Database. So we were going to create a database that just pulls together all of the free VSTs, all the resources that
Oh,
are
cool.
kind of spread out. And we thought that would be really cool because, you can go to
Yeah.
KVR or, Bedroom Producers Blog or whatever and find all these free plugins, but you did have to go to all these different places.
Right.
And so kind of branching off of that idea of there are plenty, you can make great music with all these free plugins that are out there. We kind of boiled everything down to, it's not necessarily the tools that you have, but it's your level of knowledge of those tools. So when you were
Right.
talking about, you're a Logic main, but you have played with Pro Tools, GarageBand, Ableton, and then always kind of find yourself back at Logic. One of the core principles of our group is that it's not the tools, it's how you know the tool, how you use
Right.
the tool. So, and I think that kind of marries pretty well with what you were saying about you still use some of those old Spitfire libraries because it's what you know.
Right.
And I think that's really important for people to kind of internalize. Like it's your knowledge of how to get what you want out of it rather than the actual tool itself.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to transition now into talking about how you kind of mentioned a little bit how you got into the sync licensing space.
Yeah.
But that is how I discovered you, through Soundstripe. And on your website too, Zach, if you wouldn't mind putting Cody's website into the chat, that'd be really cool so people can check that out. But on your website, it mentions Soundstripe, Artlist, and Musicvine. Are those the three main sync placement websites that you use?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the amount of energy that I put into each individual one, Soundstripe takes the top spot, hands down. Artlist used to be just used to take just as much of my time, but I don't know how many here are familiar with licensing platforms, but it's way harder to get into licensing platforms like Soundstripe or Artlist or Musicvine today than what it was 8 years ago. So, and I say that because, and I'm not saying don't go after and pursue music licensing. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that like in terms of strategy, like you want to find the music licensing platforms that are kind of up and comers. They haven't established, a firm. They haven't planted themselves firmly within the industry in terms of reputation, like the ones that I work for. I've mentioned, but that's what I did. I mean, I essentially I applied to places that would just take my music and made sure that the agreements and the contracts were, fair. I don't want to sign a contract that's similar to a production label, and because in most cases you're essentially handing everything over, and you don't want to do that unless you're getting paid a lot of money, which in most cases for licensing you aren't. You're in that overtime. But overall, yeah, I mean, those are the three that I primarily have worked with. I almost do nothing for Artlist at this point, just because their catalog is so oversaturated and not very easily controlled. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of great stuff to use, especially if you're a consumer. Like you got a ton of music to choose from. But my my biggest, I guess, caveat with Artlist is that it's at this point a lot harder to make a decent living with it unless you've been with the company, I mean, for a very, very, very long time, and you have, and you have a lot of stuff that existed on their website before they made a lot of transitions from the way that they handle, deals with artists and composers and that sort of thing. So, Musicvine and Soundstripe, however, are completely different. One is just kind of a earn by popularity sort of basis. So if you get lucky enough to start submitting stuff to their company or their website, uh, you earn essentially just a percentage of all the total earnings of, whatever projects your stuff is getting used for. The more popular the tracks are, the more you're likely to get paid. With Soundstripe, they pay by the project. And so for instance, if and it's an interesting sort of agreement, because when you submit music to their website, you're handing over all intellectual rights. So it means, once they get the track, it's theirs to own, and you just earn passively royalties and that sort of thing whenever the song is getting used somewhere, which is great. But it's what I consider like a long-term investment when you're engaging with a company like that. So you have to kind of look at it from further out and say, all right, well, if I write music for this company for 4 years straight, and I'm starting to earn a decent amount of income passively, and I'm also getting paid per track, for each composition that I'm making. I'm covering a lot of monthly expenses, and I'm also building something that can, in lack of a better word, emulate like what you would be getting in return with a stock or a bond. But instead of getting a 12% your return at your very best, you're getting 20 to 30% of a return every year. So in terms of long-term passive investment, it's a really, really good idea for composers to find ways to make placements and get those placements to stick, especially like in reality TV. It's very, very useful. You can find placements in reality TV. You're going to have those things rerunning for years and years, and it's going to be passive income that you don't have to worry about. Like it's going to show up every quarter on your PROs, and it takes care of a lot of problems on that front. So
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I was just watching Hell's Kitchen with my wife, and we were watching the newest season. And at a certain point, I was just like, somebody got eliminated, and dude, they've used the same track for the elimination for every episode for the last 24 years. And I just looked at my wife and I was like, dude, the guy who made that track must just be rolling in it.
yeah, well, there's this old library by Native Instruments called the Giant, and it's this
Yeah.
piano library, and there's this little piano sort of scratch or scrape that they just sting in whenever there's something like, emotionally intense or just stressful or whatever, and it just makes me laugh, because like I've used that a couple of times whenever I was composing for a lot of the older stuff that I was using, and I knew exactly where it was coming from, where that sample was, and every single time I watch something like that on reality TV, it just makes me laugh. Just like, wow, they're using the same exact thing, and they've been using it for over, probably at least 2 decades at this point. So it just makes me laugh.
That's awesome, man. You did actually kind of address one of the questions I had during that, where you said that, if you write something for Soundstripe, it's theirs.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a question that comes up a lot when we've talked to people who want to do sync licensing, where they're like, I want to get into sync licensing, but I also want to like upload this on Spotify or something. So
Right.
one of the questions I did have initially going into this was, out of the three that you kind of work with,
Thank you, Rich.
yeah. Bye, Rich. Thanks for joining, man. So out of Artlist, Musicvine, and Soundstripe, do they, and like I said, you kind of already answered this, do they all require different tracks, or is there like an overlap between what you can host on each platform and what you can upload as like your own personal music, or does it
Yeah.
have to be exactly like you said, Soundstripe owns this now, you can't use it for anything?
Right. Great question. So the first thing that I would probably put as a disclaimer here, because really every company that handles licensing does things differently. So So there are some companies where you can upload material and you still own all the rights. All the rights belong to you. You can do whatever the heck you want with them. You can choose whether or not you want to have, content ID or monetization on them. Like, you have a lot of options. Others are more like, just smack dab. They're just, like, this is the concrete way that we do things. We do it to stay organized. We do it to keep things simple. And we do it to avoid really any other legal entanglements that may happen if it's floating around in other places. So we're talking about exclusive agreements with licensing companies versus non-exclusive agreements, and they both have benefits, for sure. So if it's exclusive, and let's say that it's intellectually becoming theirs. Like, we'll use Soundstripe as an example. So Soundstripe, whenever you submit music to them, they'll place it on the website, but then they'll queue it in for they'll queue it in for distribution. So they take care of all of the Spotify releases, and they handle all the distribution on their end. It's one thing it's another thing that you just don't have to do. The only thing that you can be as involved with the distribution process as you want. So for instance, for me, I'm really like I'm really obsessive over like album art, and so I'm really really picky when it comes to that sort of thing. And so if they say, oh, we have a guy here that's, that we've hired that, does, a lot of the album art for all the artists, most of the time I'll be like, nope, I'm good. Like, I'm going to handle it myself because I know I can do a better job.
Right.
So, but you can't, but they're really flexible in that regard. They can, they in most cases, they make the process incredibly easy. It takes a lot. It really requires no time to get things released when you're releasing music, under them. Artlist is completely different. If you like, they give you the option to either do exclusive stuff or to, or at the time, at least, they did more non-exclusive deals to where you could have the music on other platforms if you wanted, as long as it wasn't monetized under any sort of content ID. So their distribution process only happens if, again, you agree to intellectually give them the rights to the track, and then you just earn whatever it is passively. So similar to Soundstripe, but a little bit different. But the downside for them is that they take forever. Like, I remember they hired me to do like 2 different tracks, and it took 12 months to get those tracks released, because
Wow.
they're like the I don't know if anyone's seen Ford versus Ferrari, but the problem that Ford had is that there were too many hands passing the envelope from one person to another just to make a decision in terms of what needed to be done and what changes need to be made. And that was the big problem, is that like there weren't, like the chain of command was just too complicated. And so with Artlist, you run into that problem a lot. With Soundstripe, like, they're more, they got everybody locked in for a specific role, and you get stuff pumped out very very quickly. Typically by the time you're done composing a track for them, they have it up on the website within 2 weeks. So
That's cool.
very very different in terms of just turnaround
Sure.
and that sort of thing. So um but anyway, in terms of whether or not it's worth it to do one versus the other, like I said, I do a little bit of both, because I see the value in doing both, because I don't want all of my music to be owned by somebody else. I want to own a particular amount of it myself. That way, I can be more flexible with where I put it, what I can do with it, who I might want to work with in the future that might want to use any of that music, or or whatever. And so but then there's also a huge advantage to signing a lot of those rights over, and just agreeing to a royalty deal. If you know for sure that it's in a good platform, it's going to get pitched really really well to different production houses or publishing houses or anything like that for music supervision roles or whatever. If you know for sure that you're going to get a lot of good placements, and you might not own the intellectual rights to the music, but you're still going to get a paycheck at the end of every quarter that, very aggressively gives you a return on, the time that you're investing into, writing, then I would say that it's very, very worth it. So it all comes down to people's preference, really, but there are benefits to both sides, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, sure. I think that gives us a lot of good insight as somebody who's doing it.
Yeah.
We really appreciate that.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to pivot a little bit from talking about like the business aspect of it to kind of your artistic process when it comes to writing for sync libraries. So the first kind of thing I want to ask is, how do you go about writing for sync libraries? Like, is it based on like keywords? Because I noticed a lot
hmm
of
hmm
those sites will tag your music as like hopeful,
Yeah.
intriguing,
Right.
tense. So do you just like sit down with those keywords in mind and start writing on stuff, or does a lot of your sync music that you submit to these things, does that come from like you working on your own like personal stuff and they're kind of like the
Right.
B-sides, if that makes any
Yeah.
sense?
Um, yeah, that's a really that's a really great question. So, um, man, how am I even going to word that? So if I'm throwing out, well, hold on, let me think here. Can you rephrase the question just that I'm make sure that I'm not going to screw up your answer or
Yeah,
screw up
no,
what you
you're
say?
fine. So when you sit down to write for sync libraries, are you sitting, I guess, let me rephrase that.
Yeah,
um, when you sit down to write music, are you specifically sitting down to write for sync libraries using
right,
like keywords like emotional,
sure,
tense, hopeful, or is
right.
a lot of the material that you submit kind of born out of you just working on your like personal music?
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, overall, for me right now, it's a little bit 50-50 in terms of the answer that I'm going to give you, because I do it a couple different ways. So most of the time, if you're writing for a licensing company, they'll give you a brief. And so they'll say, hey, we want 3 tracks in, kind of a drama sort of era. They'll send me a couple of links, Spotify links or whatever for reference material, and they'll just say we just kind of want something in this vein, and so they'll give me a description of the sort of thing that they're looking for, and then I'll create something that's based off of what it is that they're asking for. Other times they don't care, they just say, just give us what you feel like is going to do really well on the platform or what's going to sell the best. And so Soundstripe specifically has pretty much left that entirely to me at this point. They never send me briefs anymore because they're just like, yep, like your stuff is always doing so well. We're just going to let you do what you do, and you're going to know better than we are in this particular situation. So that's just what we're going to do. We're just going to tell you how many tracks we need every month. So right now I'm running about 4 tracks a month for Soundstripe, and that's just kind of the concrete sort of agreement that we have in place right now at the moment. And so for right now, so I'm just from scratch most of the time, just putting something together. And when it comes to looking for keywords and that sort of thing, sometimes I'll do that, but most of the time I'll just write what I feel inspired to write, and most of it just has to do with what's culturally either going on, or for there's a track on Soundstripe called Red Sand that I released, I don't know, maybe a month ago, and that's on Soundstripe, that is. And so uh and that whole track was just inspired from the Dune trilogy series.
Yeah.
And I love Dune. I love a lot of Hans Zimmer's work, and so there are a lot of times where I'm inspired or creating some form of acoustic emulation of what he does, because he's big into the hybrid orchestra stuff and I love hybrid orchestra stuff. And so in most cases, like I go a lot of similar directions or paths, I guess, that he does. But the big thing, why I really think that Hans Zimmer does really, really well, is that sure, his stuff is complicated, but compared to a lot of other composers that work in Hollywood, he acknowledges like nothing has to be complicated. Like you can actually write and create tracks that are very simple in terms of arrangement, but it's communicating the emotion or the thought that you want to convey through the music that people are going to be able to use. And so for me, sometimes I got to stop myself and be like, all right, maybe this is too busy. Like, let me just enhance these other elements that are just creating this environment that I really want to create. And so in most cases, I aim for simplicity over complexity. So So when it comes to keywords or emotions or feelings or anything like that, a lot of times it's normally either through inspiration from stuff that I've been watching or listening to on Spotify or what I just hear a lot of people talking about. And so I'll kind of make those calls based off of that, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
So
for sure. Having your finger on the pulse is
yeah.
pretty important. But no, that's a good. You had some really good insight in there, especially as far as like the idea that things don't have to be complicated.
Yeah.
Like I am a big proponent of uh, like arrangement often matters a lot more than like the notation complexity
Absolutely.
or something like that. And so, especially when you're in like music for media, um,
Hmm.
like it, you have to think about like, okay, are people going to be talking over this? Because you
Right.
don't want to take away from the scene or whatever it is, just because you want to kind of stroke your ego a bit, you know?
Right.
Um,
And there's always a time and place for that. Don't get me wrong.
yeah,
I mean, like
absolutely.
there are times where I'm like, wow, like, like I'm really impressed with myself here. Like this is actually way better than what I thought it was going to turn out to be. And so there are moments where you're like, we're going to throw this on there and just see how it does. And so I do that all the time, and it's great, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's
But
healthy.
statistically speaking, I mean, I always see my tracks doing better when I mean, I would say 9 times out of 10, I see my tracks doing better when I aim for simplicity over complexity, because the more complex the music is, the harder it is to pinpoint an exact emotion versus when you keep it simple. Um, Especially in licensing, I mean, it's way easier for people to acknowledge exactly what they need the music to do. So,
Right. Um, so I've got one more, I guess you call it custom question, just something I want to know. Um, and you don't have to get into like numbers or anything like that. I'm just curious because on your website you have the like you have your rates for like a custom commission.
right.
So just out of curiosity, what's the ratio that you would say between like your success income? Again, you don't have to go into numbers. That's not exactly why I'm here. It's just what's the ratio of sync placements versus your custom commissions? Has that kind of changed over time?
Yeah, that's great. That's a great question. So, in terms of in terms of the amount of work that I do outside of licensing, it's actually, I mean, and another, I guess, is another way for me to encourage people to pursue licensing, because it creates it's almost really its own marketing tool. You really
Sure.
get to create a platform that people start to get familiar with your work. And the more people that start using your work through those platforms, the more likely they're going to contact you and say, "Hey, I have this custom project that I would love a custom score for." And I can't tell you how many films and commercials and projects and stuff that I landed just because they heard my stuff on Soundstripe or Artlist or wherever, wherever it was that I was showcasing a lot of my work. And so I mean, when it comes to like the rates um, that I provide, like on my website, it's a pretty rudimentary, just sort of basic kind of, I guess, graph of like how much it's going to cost you, if you want it to be completely owned by you and you want full exclusivity with the music that you're wanting me to write for you. So do you need to own this music, or are you okay with other people eventually using it down the road? Do you need it temporarily? Like, is there just a point in time to where you want to be able to claim this to be yours just for a specific period of time, a year, 2 years? What are the parameters here? So a lot of times
Right.
that's typically what I'll do with my rates, is just try to establish some sort of groundwork to get them to kind of, at least in their mind, understand what it's going to cost to do something very large and elaborate versus something that's just a few minutes long. So when it comes to the larger projects, most of the time I specifically just ask whoever's asked, that's reaching out to me about it. I just say, well, let's just sit down and figure out what you have the financial capability to do, what you actually need, how much music you actually need, that sort of thing. And then we can, if the numbers aren't quite adding up, we can see if we can rearrange a different type of agreement. And so being really flexible with either uh, the money or your resources in terms of royalties or percentages. A lot of times, if a director reaches out to me and says, "Hey, we have a really really low budget with music," um, can we negotiate any sort of other agreement? And a lot of times I'll say, yeah, absolutely. Most of the time, if they don't have a whole lot of money to offer on the front end, but there's a really good, but in terms of what I know about the film, how like the high quality that it is, and that I just know that like this is going to do fairly well, and honestly, like land a pretty good deal on a distribution platform or something like Netflix or, wherever. A lot of times I'll just put in a contract like, well, no, I just, whatever the gross earnings are from whatever deals come after this project is complete, then I'll just from a contractual standpoint, I'll just say like you need to give me 3 to 5% or more depending on what the actual price to create the music actually is, and that establishes just a lot more security in that regard. So there are a lot of advantages to doing that. Um, but in terms of, I guess, and so sorry, Skylar,
No,
if I'm staying on track here, or if I'm completely
yeah,
off base of what you were originally asking me, forgive me.
you're good, man.
You can hold me back in if you need to. So, but in terms of ratio and income, um, I would say still, I mean, the majority of my income, like I would probably 70 to 65%, maybe even 70, like probably firmer to 75%. 75% of all of my like income earnings from composing still stem from my royalties when it comes to licensing and making placements and that sort of thing. And then the other 25 to 20% is stuff that I contract outside of that. And I like that. I like that model a lot because I mean, if I had the ability to create a passive system to maintain income as a musician to where I never really have to worry too much about it. Because again, like I mean, as I'm sure most of you guys here know, like royalties can fluctuate extremely. Extremely back and forth, and it's hard to maintain a steady trajectory unless you have a really good system in place that's securing a lot of that. So sure, you're going to have dips and rises here and there from quarter to quarter, but the whole goal is to make everything grow and continue to increase. So um, once you have a system in place to where you can establish that, then you can pretty much take on whatever project you want. You can start saying no a lot more often, and just
Right.
writing stuff that you're more passionate about being involved in and that sort of thing. And so that's, I mean, essentially where I'm at in terms of the ratio between the two and the value. But again, I have buddies of mine that I mean make a killing just going from contract to contract and just working, not even working in the licensing industry. They just focus on working on one film and then moving to the next, and then that's just how they like to operate. And um I mean it just kind of comes down to the way that people really want to pursue it. So
For sure. Well, and it also sounds like it confirms something that I've always kind of internalized is that networking is huge.
oh
Like,
yeah,
yeah, like making
absolutely. I
friends.
mean,
So
uh, when it comes down, I mean, if you really want to get a lot of work and get a lot of work fast and make a lot of connections, go to conferences, film festivals, music summits, composer summits, like anything, I mean, in that general vein of business is really great because you're either making a lot of networking connections for collaborations and getting your music more recognized or out there, but you're also going to run into a lot of people that are just I mean, enthusiasts about music and, have a company that either is in media or film or whatever. And, making those connections are huge because you can get so much more work by showing up to those places and meeting, people that are specifically in the same vein of work that you're in. And it's a huge advantage to be able to do that. So,
for sure. So it looks like we got about 12 minutes here. And I wanted to build in some time towards the end of this call we kind of prompted our group members to, if they couldn't make it to the call that we're doing right now, I wanted to make sure that we asked the questions that they wanted to know the answers to. And first is from a member named Anch, who is actually in school right now. He's very young. but he's punching really heavily above his weight class right now when it comes to music. He just
That's
started,
awesome.
and his music is phenomenal. Um,
Oh, so
but
cool.
yeah, man, I love watching this kid grow. But he had a question, and he said he's heard a few times now that it's good to grow a circle of insiders in production, making a network, friends like we
Mhm.
were just talking about. And it's essential to make music that stands out to video game developers, filmmakers, and make music that intrigues those people to want to come talk to you.
Yeah.
But he says he has zero clue how he wants to build his portfolio or even where he should start. So I tried to kind of boil down his question into how do you craft music that hooks and intrigues the people that you want to work with? How is that
Mm.
something that you um, handled?
Yeah. Well, that's a really great question. So, well, the best way that I guess I can answer this question is to establish, I guess, what like like why I'm doing what I'm doing. Like I could be writing pop music and EDM and house stuff, that's all over the place. If I was really aiming for, you know, the top placements and I was really just going for the money, I could do it, but man, I'd hate doing it. Like I'm not a big fan of, the pop EDM, world in terms of like the genre, and just like it's just not something that excites me all that much. And that's just because it's not very cinematic, it's just more corporate, and don't get me wrong, I read a lot of corporate stuff, but it's still kind of more elegant and cinematic in the vein that I love writing. So the best thing that I could say is that, I mean, if you're wanting to just figure out what you want to do, figure out if what you're just really passionate about, like the music that you're really passionate about creating, is something that has a really good market for. So like I would say very, very, with very strong confidence that if you're in pop or EDM, it's going to be a lot more difficult to make a living uh, as within a composer role versus an artist, singer, songwriter role. And they're just two completely different. It's just a completely different ball game from one to the other.
Sure.
And so, I mean, what I would say is, figure out what you just really enjoy. What are you really passionate about writing? What types of music or what type of projects have you seen in entertainment that really get you excited? Um, Once you figure that out, then you focus on that, and then you find other people, especially like I said, I mean, music festivals, film festivals, conferences, composer summits. Like you can find a lot of people that are into that exact same sort of thing that you can connect with, that can kind of get you in the right direction, and I mean that'll really propel you forward in terms of how you want to structuralize the business that you want to create, and or the service that you want to provide. Um, and that's essentially really what I did. I have a couple of composer groups that I mean from greenies and rookies to, I mean, the guys that have been doing this for 30, 40 years and have got a huge, insane resume on their shoulders. And, but it's very similar to what you guys have here, is that like, you just, like you're getting people together to really share thoughts, and, and really just exchange ideas in a way that's encouraging and motivational. Because if someone knows just how to do something that you just can't figure out, or you can't find it on Google or whatever, it's like, I mean, it's an amazing, it's amazing tool to have, people around just in an environment like this, to be able to learn from each other and to advance and continue to progress forward. So,
Dude, good answer. Thank you.
yeah.
I've got two more quick ones from the group that weren't able to make it today.
Sure.
Another young buck named Space Beats. I don't know his actual name, but
Space Beats.
he wanted to know what you would say is the most important part of music production to learn apart from music theory, and what's the best way to learn it.
Well, that's a great question. Well, I am not a theory nerd. I actually am an ear guy over everything else. I mean, yeah, I mean, I took some basic theory and stuff in college, and I mean, I know the fundamentals, but I'm not I'm not ones to like if I'm working on a short, like on a feature film and I'm doing a very large orchestral or arrangement, I'll hire an orchestrator to actually
Mhm.
help me just put everything on paper the way that needs to be put. So in terms of like what's the most important, um, I mean, I would honestly say kind of like what we brought up in conversation earlier is that the quality of the sound that you're capturing matters. So make sure
Sure.
that you're not recording a lousy sound. You're going to save yourself a lot of problems and a lot of headaches in the long run if you make sure that the sounds that you're using sound great from the get-go versus recording on a crappy microphone or using a VST sample that is ancient that has no business being in a mixing session. And don't get me wrong, like I mean, if you're aiming for some sort of lo-fi or old school sort of quality, and then you're running that through like a master chain or a mixing chain at the end of it to still make it sound really cool and unique and individual, that's a different thing. But overall, I mean, I would say that like how you're capturing your music, actually matters. And the nice thing about digital emulation or digital libraries is that you have the ability to, change those and modify those within the plugin or within the library that you're actually using, and you can kind of still make it your own, but still not lose the quality, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
So
Yeah. No, I think that's a great insight for
yeah,
I'm gonna call him Space. I don't know his actual name, but
yeah, yeah.
hopefully
I mean,
Space gets some
I
insight from
mean,
that.
don't get me wrong. I mean, when you're done with the project and you have it when you have it all wrapped up. I mean, making sure that you have a really good master of it as well. Because I mean, again, the overall quality and the end result of whatever you're putting together is still very, very important. So,
Right.
if anybody has any questions in terms of just how to establish a really good, master chain and just a few things that you can do to really help push the envelope even a little bit further in terms of quality, I'm happy to, I mean, point people in the right direction in terms of that. So, you guys, I mean, if you guys have questions or want to reach out to me directly, like my website is, I believe, attached in the chat, and everything's associated and links to my email. So if you reach out through the website or just copy the email off the website and email me directly, that's my direct email. So
Awesome, man. I've got one more question here, and if you don't mind, we might. Are you okay if we go over by a couple
oh, we
minutes?
can go long. Yeah, no, we're fine.
We're going long. But I do
We're
have
going
a.
long.
Yeah, you might get that as somebody who's actually worked with the Glass Cannon podcast. So,
Oh, wow, man, that's a throwback. Holy moly,
right, dude?
dude.
You did
Uh,
A16 Ocean View, right?
A16 Ocean View.
Dude,
Wow.
I love
Yeah,
those
man.
guys.
That was well, I don't know. I mean, I know you guys were talking about D&D stuff for a
Yeah,
while, but I mean, I'm a huge Pathfinder nerd and D&D enthusiast. So I completely like, yeah, that's so funny, man. You just brighten my day. The fact that you know A16, that's
that's
so
awesome,
great.
dude. Yeah, I'm a huge Glass Cannon fan, man.
Oh,
Um,
that's great.
I've got one. Melvin has kind of popped in and out here on this call, but he did have a question that he put in our group.
Awesome.
So his initial question was, how did Cody get started and branch out into composing for different projects, which I feel like we've kind of covered a little bit. But he also added an addendum, which we also kind of covered. What inspires you?
Hmm.
I guess I would like to build off of this and just kind of ask like a general Cody origin story question of like what was the track or movie whatever that you saw or heard that was like I need to do this. I
Yeah.
want to do this with my life.
Great question. I love answering this. I've had to answer this a couple times because well, for me, like, I mean, like when I was a kid, I mean, like I would watch movies and stuff, and there'd just be moments in, whatever movie that I was watching, it just give you goosebumps, and that
Yeah.
was just, and it was always something that the music had a part in, that the music played a part in activating that, euphoria, so to speak. And um, so one of my favorite films, actually, Hans Zimmer composed for this film, and I didn't know that it was Hans Zimmer at the time, but it was a DreamWorks film I believe it was released in either the late 90s or early 2000s. It was Prince of Egypt.
Okay.
And so the soundtrack for Prince of Egypt was by far one of my favorites. And it was when I listened to the Burning Bush theme for the first time, I was like, I've got to do this. Like I got to figure out how to do this. And I didn't really come to that realization until I was probably like 16, So I mean it was way past being, I'm way past from seeing this film as a kid, but revisiting that film I think when I was like 16 or 17 and thinking to myself like I think I figured it out, like because I started really getting hooked on rock bands. Like I loved, I mean modern I loved like modern 2000, you know uh rock and roll, that sort of thing. But I loved it when specific bands incorporated cellos and big, massive orchestral elements. It just added so much. Like for me, it added so much to what I was already listening to. And so I started to kind of piece two and two together. Like there's something with these orchestral instruments that like is just doing it for me.
Mm.
And so that's kind of what I mean. I guess that's kind of how I got inspired to pursue that in its entirety. And so, and then that on top of all the other films that I know and love that kind of kick things into gear as well. And it was just kind of one of those things where I realized like, yep, like I'm going to figure out how I can do this at home.
Yeah, for sure, man. No, that's awesome. I
So,
love hearing like the everybody talks about the villain origin story, but I love the origin story of a hero that's just like
yeah,
the I I know what I need to do now. Like I think
yeah,
that's awesome. Um, so that was actually my last prepared question. But as we kind of go into the end of this right now, I'd like to open the floor. Geo in particular is a our one of our most recent FP Plus members, along with Steve. So if
awesome.
either of those guys have any questions, I'd love to let you and interact with them directly. And then if anybody else has any questions as well, feel free to unmute yourself and ask away, guys.
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me, Cody?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Well, amazing session. I got definitely a lot of insights. I don't really have too much questions, but I was thinking about one. I was curious back on the business side of things, how in particular your avenue, how AI has maybe affected things over the last few years. I know that's a really loaded question,
Sure.
but yeah, I mean anything that comes to mind. Just very
Yeah,
curious.
well, yeah, that it's so funny, man. That I mean, that really is a great question because for some artists it's a big problem,
Yeah.
and for others, like people could care less because they're like, no, it has nothing to do with what I'm involved with, and like I mean, for me, like I'm not for what I do, like I'm not worried in the slightest about AI. And don't get me wrong, I use it a lot as a tool, but it's kind of one of those things. I mean, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Nathan Larson. He does a lot of YouTube tutorial mixing production stuff. He's one of my best friends, and so him and I just had a conversation yesterday about this, and we both love AI, but not for the same reason that everybody else hates it and thinks that it's could potentially ruin the music industry. Um, so we acknowledge that if you're using AI to help you accomplish a specific tool that's going to, I mean, shorten the amount of time that it takes for you to get a certain task done. So for instance, like if, album art, right? We're going to go back to album art because I love creating album art. And for me, it's about taking an image that I have in my head and portraying it and getting it ready and locked in for distribution, right? So before AI really became a more popular thing, uh, I had to do it just like everybody else did. I had to learn Photoshop. I had to, I mean, really take advantage of, every tool at my disposal in order to create something unique or original for an album release. And I know how to do it. Like, I mean, I took the time and the effort, and I put the work in on how to do it. But like the great thing about a lot of AI programs is that it does so much of that for you already, and it I mean cuts your time. I mean by hours. I mean being able to be able to put in prompts and be able to do everything. Um, And same with like Nathan, like he loves using Claude for just feeding in a bunch of information on the business side of things, saying, "Hey, look, I need you to crunch these numbers on this and give me an estimate of what, is appropriate to spend here, there, or whatever." Like we're using it as a tool to just help us, save ourselves time so that we can focus on what really matters, just writing music. And so if you're using AI and a tool like that to just help push forward what you might not have the knowledge or the time to be able to accomplish on your own without having to hire somebody, because that was the thing. Like, I mean, I could hire other people to do this, but if I'm, still an up and comer and I might not even be paying all my bills uh, with what I'm earning through music yet. Like that becomes pretty intimidating and kind of it feels like you just kind of you're taking steps backwards at that point because you're not earning enough and you're just giving all your money away to other people to do the job that you don't know how to do. So AI is really great for replacing that gap of knowledge that you might have. Now, when it comes to strict like music composition and creation, that's where we both kind of agree. Like, yes, like that can be a problem for some people, but even then, um, it's not it's not advanced enough to where it has a human element to it. It just doesn't. You can tell pretty easily when something is artificial versus, really, really authentic. And I think the genres that are the most at danger of getting replaced by AI are, pop, EDM, trap, house music sort of stuff. Like stuff that overall, our country music would be another one. They all have very they all have very very distinct sounds in terms of the genre that they're confined within versus orchestral stuff. No soundtrack ever sounds the same. Like everything sounds so immaculately different, and it like that's the magic of orchestra music, is that it's just like, I mean, in cinema, is that like you're never going to run out of places to, jump to and explore. And so in terms of my my anxiety, I guess, about AI in terms of being a threat to composers for film or television or licensing or anything like that. Like, I just don't see it being a problem for a significantly long time. And by that point, I would hope that there would be some reform and legislation to make sure that that's, limited to a certain ability to make sure creators keep on doing what they need to be doing. So,
For sure.
yeah.
Um, that's a good question, Gio. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, bro, that was a great question.
Um, Michelle, Sonia, Rich, anything
I
you guys
actually
want
have a
to
question
ask?
if nobody has. Can you hear me, guys? Yeah, right?
Yeah, I can hear you a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, a little bit. Wait, can I boost my? I'm gonna. Okay. So thanks, Cody. First of all, like amazing
Yeah,
stuff.
brother.
Really, really inspiring to hear your story. So I actually have two things I wanted to say. One is touching on the AI stuff. Is like it's funny enough because I don't know if like everybody here knows Ableton, like Ableton Live 12. Basically, they have like the
Mhm.
whole generate and transform functions, so that I mean, when I first saw it, I didn't know what it does. I learned it in a tutorial. I was like, okay, so this is kind of AI in a way, because you're giving it like how many semitones or whatever scale, and they're basically like giving you semitones or basically notes to play, and it's up to you to decide. But most likely, like mostly what I did with it, like I didn't find it was really interesting because it was like all over the place. So at the end, you
Yeah.
still have to kind of edit it, right? So my question actually was because I saw your website and you did this rework for Expedition 33, and I was wondering like what's
Oh,
if
yeah.
backstory to that, because that was like really good. I really liked it. I listened to it yesterday, and it's one of my favorite. I would say top three soundtracks of all times is Expedition 33. I don't know
Yeah.
if anybody else played it.
It's a great
Like to
game.
me, it's up there with like Final Fantasy 7 and 10. If
I'm a
anybody
huge
also
fan.
played the old ones.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yes.
interested in like
Oh,
how
yeah.
that came up and how that happened. If there's like a backstory.
Yeah, well, I actually did not know much about Expedition 33 apart from the fact that I thought to myself when I saw the trailer, like, wow, this looks insane. Like I love the concept of it. And I was looking, honestly, at that point I was looking at just some stuff that I could do for fun. And I wanted to kind of up my trailer game and create some more trailer oriented tracks. And so yeah, I mean, I do stuff like this all the time just for fun because like I don't know if a lot of you guys know much about like I mean fair use and what that actually means from a copyright or legal standpoint, but um so I had to actually do some research before doing this because I had to figure out like, can I just rip a trailer off of YouTube and then remove all of the music and just isolate all the dialogue and then score my own version to what's going on? And the answer that I eventually got after doing a lot of research was yes, but you can't make any money off of whatever it is that you're posting for, with the footage on it. So for instance, if you're trying to make money off of the trailer itself, then that's a big no-no. But if you're specifically just using it as a showcase to, I guess, express kind of what you can do and what you have the ability to accomplish, then that's perfectly okay. As long as you're not making money specifically from posting that video. So for instance, if I were to take that video that I did for Expedition 33 and I created my own trailer music for it, and I posted that on YouTube and it got 1 million+ hits or whatever, like, and I made a bunch of money off of just that one YouTube video. That would be, a conflict of interest in terms of, the legal, ramifications. So that money would have to go back, unfortunately, to, I believe was it Sandfall? Is Sandfall?
Stanford
Yeah,
Interactive,
yeah.
Stanford Interactive.
And
Yeah, you
so,
can't monetize it. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
yeah,
So it was
but in
basically like
terms
a
of
passion project.
yeah, exactly. It is a passion project, and if you're creating projects like that just for the sake of because that's the thing. Like I took that track that I used that I created for that trailer, and I put it up on Soundstripe. So I didn't put the video up on Soundstripe or the trailer itself up on Soundstripe, but I used it as a tool to essentially just create something really unique and original, and just I mean put it up on a platform where I could earn money, but earn money off of the music, not necessarily the
Yeah.
the video that I was using as a placeholder, essentially. Um, so
That's
yeah,
nice.
I mean,
Actually, so basically, it's like kind of hitting two birds with a rock. So you have it one, so for your portfolio, basically to have it,
yes,
you like it, and then you put it on Soundstripe so you can earn some money from it. That's actually
yes, yeah. I did
that's
that. I did that a couple different times. I think I did another one, same sort of thing for Godzilla minus one, um, and another one I did another one for Stranger Things,
Mhm.
but the only I think I'm trying to think. I did another one for Joker. The only one that was actually that I actually got hired to write music for was the Rings of Power season 2 stuff, and that was the track
yeah.
and the footage that I used was from the Rings of Power stuff. So, and even
Okay,
then,
one
the
more
trailer
question.
wasn't even cut. It was I mean, they literally just sent us the footage of one of the trailers from the season 1, and they say we want it, roughly this sort of structure, so score to this structure, and so that's what I ended up doing. Essentially, was just using what they sent over to me. Um, but overall, yeah, I mean it's incredibly useful to be able to do, and it also it's a great way to keep yourself inspired and to just I
Yeah.
mean find new ways to do things and so I
Yeah,
mean
that's
yeah.
cool. What do you think? So my also, I would like to know the question also for everybody else. I don't know if you guys heard like the soundtrack, the original soundtrack of Expedition 33, and what do you think of it? Because for me, it's literally like I don't know, like the guy who did it. I genuinely don't know how he came up with it. It's amazing.
So
It's crazy.
can you ask that question again? Sorry, it was
Have
hard to
you
hear you.
did you like did you and everybody else did you guys listen to the original soundtrack of Expedition 33? Because I think it's, as I said before, it's one of the best for me,
Oh
like
yeah,
soundtrack
yeah, it's a great
of video
soundtrack. Well,
games.
I mean, I own the game myself and
Yeah.
play the game myself, so yeah, I love it. I really do love the soundtrack. But when I was making the trailer for it, I mean, it wasn't out yet, like it hadn't been released yet, so I had
Oh, so that was
no like
before. Okay,
the
yeah,
sound
yeah,
the
yeah.
soundtrack
True,
wasn't
true.
even
Yeah,
released at that time, so I just kind
yeah.
of went the direction that I thought was appropriate, I guess, if that makes any sense. So
Yeah, for sure, man.
Oh, cool. Thanks.
Any game that can make me cry within 30 minutes is
yeah.
like it's a
Yes,
masterpiece in my
exactly my
opinion.
thoughts. Like literally, if I ever want to have goosebumps, I just go watch the starter title screen
Yeah.
soundtrack. Like
Uh,
genuinely, directly, I get like goosebumps.
yeah, my wife is sick of hearing Lost Voice because I
Yeah.
listen to it all the
Yeah.
time, and I just literally cry wherever I'm like going to meet my friends and have a really good time, and I'm just like, so cool. Sonia or Rich, do you guys have any questions, or even Zach? You're part of this too. So if you guys have any questions, we should probably wrap up here pretty shortly.
Hi, everybody. I've been busy in the comments just on the AI stuff. So I'll just say really quick, this has been really interesting. Thank you. The AI discussion is excellent too. And yeah, I probably offend people in the way I use AI by getting in on their territory. I'm coding a plugin in C++ that I have not been able to get done in 20 years, and now I can. And all the coders are probably pissed at me for that. But I'm really looking to get into sync licensing, and this has been really helpful. So I just want to say thanks and just say I've been busy
Absolutely,
in the
Rich.
comments.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's great. Yeah, well, like I mean, to add on to what you were saying there, Rich. I mean, there are a ton of really great tools that I recommend a lot of people to use if they, especially if their resources are really limited and they're just like I mean, especially when it comes to creating concepts and and different ideas, and it really sparks the imagination in terms of what directions you can go and what you can't. Like I mean, I've got so many friends. I got so many friends up in Chicago and California. Like if they're just wanting to, if they're hitting a roadblock or they're just hitting a brick wall, and they in terms of just creativity, and they just can't seem to get past whatever it is that they're doing, they'll drop it in. They'll drop it into an AI program and say, "Hey, look, like what am I missing here? Like what could I be doing differently?" And it a lot of times they'll get exactly what they need to just help them kind of get around the corner and get past that writer's block. And then they just go right back into what they were doing. So they're not even using it in a term of where they're using the AI and they're posting it. They're using it to help them, get back into the realm of creativity. Because a lot of times that's just what we need, is just an extra push in a different direction that our brain just isn't, moving toward yet. So it can be incredibly useful and very resourceful, to say the very least. So
For sure. All right, last call for Zach or Sonia. Either of you guys want to
Yeah.
pop in? Okay.
Yeah, I'll drop a few comments in here. I've kind of been laying back in the cut this whole time. Um, yeah, as far as the AI thing, I just want to say, like, I think that strategy is great. Like, a lot of times I think people default to using AI and say, like, build this thing for me.
right,
But just using it as a way to say, like, what am I missing?
right,
That's the piece that I think is really important. Like, what are the blind spots? What are the
right.
things that are obvious that I don't know? Um, but as far as an actual question, Cody, I wanted to ask, there was kind of a phrase that you said, which was score to structure. Is that something that is like a known kind of strategy with like building demo reels or something like that? Like you'll get some material in advance that you're expected to uh, build some song structure around.
Mm. Yeah, well, it depends. It depends on the project, but I mean, I've done it. I've done it both ways. I'll write from scratch without any sort of structure or, system kind of in place for me to keep track of where I am and what I'm doing. A lot of times I'll just write, like, especially in licensing, in a lot of ways, I kind of force myself to um, write my material in kind of three different sections. So I'll write something that stays fairly simplistic to start off with, I'll add a little bit more to it in the middle, and then we'll, finale it off with something bigger, like a bigger chorus. So I mean, kind of like a verse. Sometimes it's like similar to like a verse, verse chorus, and then just a big chorus at the end, something like that. As long as I can split it up into like three different sections to where it's easy for people to use and they can cut it up and use whatever portion that they're wanting, it just creates a little bit more versatility in terms of what people can use it, actually use it for. And so, and that's why I say that complexity sometimes can get in the way of that, because then it's harder to blend certain elements of a track together if you have too many things going on all at once. So a lot of times I'll try and create, some drops or some spaces in between each section to just kind of let the track breathe again. That way, if people only want to use the first portion of a track, then they can, then they don't have to worry about just cutting the track cold turkey and then
Mm-hmm.
figuring out, all right, well, that kind of sounds weird. Like, I'd rather have it to where, like, pretty much if they want everything to fade out and feel pretty naturally, they have the ability in the edits to be able to do that. But that means that I have to structure the music in a specific way for people to be able to use it that way. Um, so I mean, but in terms of scoring to structure, in terms of like visual representation, um, if I'm working with a client, that's almost always, a part of the deal, because they always have something that they want you to score to anyway, and that makes it really easy. And then, but then again, there are other times where, like, kind of like the Expedition 33 example, I'm just like, yeah, I just want to create something. Like, I might want to even focus improving my own skills on something specific. So maybe I want to improve my skills on scoring to, like a fight scene or combat scene or something along those
Mm,
lines, and
yeah.
I know something that would be perfect for me to score to. So let me see if I can get a, rip that off the internet and just drop it into my DAW. And that way I have something visually that I can use as a structure to be able to create this music for whatever it is that I'm putting together. So sometimes I'll do that just for the sake of it being a fun thing to do, and I'm still staying productive and getting work done. And I can use that track for, Soundstripe or, sync or whatever it is. Like, it just all
Yeah.
comes down to, what I'm in the mood to do, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, in terms of whether or not it's necessary, I mean, you can do it both ways. There's no right or wrong way to do it. That's just the way that I enjoy doing it, because it's more entertaining and it keeps the creative juices flowing.
Yeah. And Logic is pretty good for working alongside video, right?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah,
Cool.
you can pretty much drop any sort of video file just into the Logic session, and it'll, I mean, drop all the footage out into the session along with all the audio that's attached to that video file. So a lot of times what I'll do, in instances like that, because a lot of the times whenever you're downloading something off of YouTube or wherever, there's music already in that audio file. So I have to
Mm-hmm.
export that audio file and run it through, an AI program that stems everything out and
Mm.
essentially removes whatever it is that I'm wanting it to get removed, or isolate certain things or whatever. And then I'll drop that audio back in. So, I mean, it takes me a few minutes to do, but in the long run, like, now I have a video file that's clean, that has isolated dialogue, no music, and I can just score rights to that. And I don't have to worry about the music getting distracted or clashing
Yeah.
with whatever it is I'm doing or whatever. So
It's a great workflow. I like the sound of that.
yeah, it's a lot of fun too. I mean, I enjoy whenever I have the opportunity to do something like that. It's a lot of fun to do.
That's awesome, man. Zach, you got anything else?
Well, yeah, I had kind of a question in my back pocket. Cody, I was just curious, what's you talked kind of at length about making your own artwork. I just wondered if you had any homebrew artwork that was like your favorite of all time.
Oh man, that's a really great question. So there's a there's an album that I released. I think it was last year actually that I released it. It's called Fireheart, and that one actually wasn't AI generated. I actually put that whole thing together, and it was kind of like the pinnacle of my Photoshop skills if I were to
Gotcha.
put anything down to it. So that one would probably be my favorite. But in terms of like the AI stuff and the AI generated stuff, um, there was a release. I think I'll have to check. I think it was about 2 or 3 months ago that it finally released. But the overall, like, aesthetic of it, I'm just a really big fan of. It was yeah, that's right. It was Wolgrim. It's kind of got this it's just a chess piece on a chessboard, and it's got a very Game of Thrones sort of dragon sort of style monolith on the chess piece. And so I just love the overall
I
design
see
that it
it.
put together. So
That's really cool.
and so yeah, I mean, I kind of gravitate from, from 3 different areas. So like a lot of my releases, I try to centralize around like orchestral, like excitement stuff, like really action-packed stuff, trailer music, stuff that's, typically in minor keys. That's just, like just kind of more gritty and dirty and that sort of thing. And then I'll have another, and then I'll try and, take all my other works, like all my more elegant and orchestral, cinematic, emotional stuff, all the uppity, major key compositions will kind of go into another one. And then the third, I guess, group would be a lot of the more like corporate-y, pop, orchestral cinematic elements that I kind of blend together for those. And those are just really, really good for corporate vibes. And surprisingly, those, I mean, in terms of popularity on Soundstripe, those always do the best. Like those always, tend to get the most traffic, because anything that's cinematic pop, it's just so universally usable
Mm.
for I mean, for projects and commercials and, reality TV stuff and all that sort of stuff. So
Yeah, it sounds like that flexibility is a pretty big part of writing for sync.
oh yeah, 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 for sure. Yeah, the more that you can gravitate from, especially in licensing, the more that you can gravitate from one style, or genre to another, but still maintain, kind of a core structure of cinematic or orchestral elements that you can kind of bleed into each individual one. You're normally going to be looking, really, really good, because it's unique enough to where it's not just going to automatically fall within a pop category or a hip hop category or whatever. Like you have enough of elements to it to where it really is cinematic, and people enjoy the cinematic title in media for entertainment, because it's something that's going to sound more unique than just your typical, you know, pop or hip hop,
Sure.
track or, hit or whatever. So, um, but overall, yeah, man. I mean, yeah, album art's just fun. It's just a fun. It's a fun additional thing that I like to do every couple of months whenever I am releasing
Yeah, when it's
a new
time.
track. Yeah, whenever everything's wrapped up. But
Yeah.
um, but anyway, yeah,
Um,
Cool. Hey, thanks for answering.
yeah, brother, not a problem.
before we wrap up, I said let's go a few minutes over, and we're almost half an hour past our finish time. Sonia, do you have anything you want to add, or are you good just chilling and watching?
Yeah, no, this has been fascinating, and thank you so much.
Oh, not a problem, Sonia.
You've
Can
been
I have
great.
like just a very quick question, just popped in my mind?
Sure.
So, I could Google it, but I'm interested in what you guys' experiences are. What best websites or tools can you use to separate tracks? Like if I want to extract a vocal, like what you said, what you did, Cody, what
Yeah,
is what
yeah,
what you say the best where like it's very important that the quality stays the same for me,
yeah,
and maybe hopefully it's free, maybe,
yeah. Well,
maybe.
the one that I use, it does have there is a free version that you can use. It's oh, Skylar has one. That he just put in the chat.
Oh yeah,
I've
sorry
heard
to
of that one. I haven't
distract
used
you.
that one. I'll have to check that one out. I use Moises, which is Moises, I believe, and it's yeah. I mean, it does a lot of different things. It does more than just stem separation, but
Yeah, I just found it. Thanks.
yeah,
I'll
it's again, it's not perfect. Like you're not going to get, like, whenever you're doing stem separation, you're never going to get like a pristinely clean cut. It's going to sound a little bit glitchy. You need to do a little bit of additional processing on the track if you want to prevent it from sounding a little glitchy. So a lot of times I'll put a very, very subtle like reverb onto, like, I'm not even kidding, like 1 to 2% of wetness of reverb, like very, very, very subtle. And that will kind of soften the glitchy sort of elements that you get from stem separation. And it all comes down to how you're separating them as well. So for instance, like if I'm working on a trailer track, um, most of the time when they're like, it's very easy for the sound effects and the music to not perfectly get separated, because they both activate kind of sonically as a part of the music. And so that gets a little bit trickier. And so you just have to be mindful of that when you're separating those tracks specifically. But the biggest thing and the biggest thing that I tell everybody to focus on is the dialogue, especially if you're just taking a scene from a film out. That's way easier, way easier to score to an actual scene of a film versus a trailer. Trailers are typically a little bit more difficult to get around that and do stem separation because most of the time their projects and the stems are just so massive. Literally, I have a couple buddies in the UK that specifically just do trailer music, and that's what they do for a living. And like they will have 300 to 400 active tracks going on in one session for one trailer project. It's just absolutely bonkers, like how many instruments you're using additionally in a trailer composition versus a orchestral cinematic, soundtrack sort of project. So it's very different.
For sure. Thanks for answering that question, man. Actually, thanks for answering all of our questions. Dude, this has been really good. I feel like I could keep you here for the next like 6 hours and actually pick your brain about like actual musical topics that don't relate to sync or artwork or anything like that. But unfortunately, I have to let you get back to your life, which
Oh, you're good, man. Well, if you guys ever want to bring me back on, I'm more than happy to do so. So guys just keep me posted.
absolutely, man. Thank you again for being here, for putting up with all of our questions. I think this has gone really well. I think a lot of the people who aren't here are going to get a lot of good information and insight from the things you talked about. And we would definitely love to have you back at some point, just to keep going, keep diving into it. But
yeah, brother, that'd be great.
But all right, man, I'll let you get back to your life and your wife. And thanks again for being here. It was a really big pleasure getting to talk to you, dude.
Yeah, man, absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here, guys.
All right, guys. I will see you all in the school group. Cody, I'm sure we'll talk on LinkedIn again at some point soon.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, well, again, if there's anything else that you guys have questions about or whatever, I believe Zach put my LinkedIn profile in there as well. My website is also in there, so you guys can reach out via email or LinkedIn. I'm horrible at responding on LinkedIn, so if I don't respond there right away, just email me.
Yeah. Also, if you guys check out Cody's website, give him a follow on Instagram as well. Just keep up with what Cody's doing because he's doing a lot of stuff that we all would like to do. So I guess we'll call it there. Thanks again for being here, Cody.
All right, guys.
Pleasure talking to you, man.
Yep, you guys as well. You guys all take it easy, and we'll hopefully talk soon.
Yep. Bye, guys.
Right. Bye.
Bye.